The perfect 8-input live streaming switcher doesn't exist, but with the latest software update, OSEE's GoStream Duet 8 ISO comes very, very close. On paper, this thing is packed. There's 4 HDMI inputs, 4 SDI inputs, and the ability to bring in multiple NDI HX sources. 2 media players that play video files straight from the SD card slot, and yes, it records all 8 inputs as ISOs. If you're used to features like SuperSource on an ATEM or Scenes on the Rodecaster video, you'll appreciate the 4-window multi-source mode that's built right in. Outputs are just as flexible. You can send your program as a USB webcam feed to your computer while still having 2 HDMI outs and an SDI output for Multiview, Preview, Program, or looping an input. And it can stream to 3 platforms at once, saving you the cost of needing sites like Restream or a secondary encoder. The HDMI ports support up to 4K at 60 frames per second, which is impressive for a $799 unit. What really makes the Duet 8 ISO stand out, though, is the combination of features that normally live in separate categories of gear. It has a full menu system, desktop control software, and importantly, it's fully compatible with Companion. That means if you've got a Stream Deck, you can map buttons right away. For live streamers trying to scale their productions, that's kind of a huge deal. Now let me highlight what I think most people will notice first. Number 1, power and audio. OSEE included both a physical on-off switch and professional grade audio with XLR inputs and phantom power, plus 3.5mm inputs too. That alone puts it ahead of some competitors. Number 2, smart connectivity. There's 2 USB-C ports plus a separate SD card slot, which give you the flexibility to stream to a computer, record to an SSD, and still pull the media from the card storage all at the same time. And number 3, the decision to pair 4K HDMI with 3G SDI and then layer NDI on top. That's not just checking the boxes, that's bridging the gap between prosumer and pro workflows. It also boasts SRT and RTMP as input options. Another strong move is direct media playback. The control surface has dedicated buttons for media players 1 and 2, so you don't have to dive into software just to roll a clip. Compared to switchers that force you into external players or clunky codecs, this is far more efficient. The panel also gives you both program and preview buttons, so you can cut live or operate in preview program mode. For beginners, it's a great way to learn pro-style switching. And let's talk about ISO recording. With the Duet 8, you can actually pick which inputs to record. That means that you're not wasting drive space on empty channels, something that drives me crazy on other switchers. Small but important touches like this show that OSEE is listening to real users.
The GoStream Duet 8 ISO has a feature called multi-source. And with multi-source, I can basically set a background image and then I can layer up to 4 layers over top of that. So here in the GoStream Duet 8 ISO software, you can see that the multi-source tab provides me with a common setting. Common is basically what's going to be my background image. I can set it as a background or a foreground. For right now, it's just my background and it's set to Media Player 2. The way I know what's in Media Player 2 is because I uploaded this blue image right here and I set Media Player 2 to still and I chose 3 as my image. Now back in the multi-source settings, you've also got window 1, 2, 3, and 4. When you're in common, you actually have some templates that you can click. So I can easily toggle through a template like this, or a template like this. And let me bring that up into program here so you can see this. So window 1, I can enable or disable, and you can see that will turn it on or off. I've got a source, so I can choose my source. Right now, this is input 1. And I can size and position this source as well as cropping. So I do have the ability to crop it before I go on to window number 2, and same settings, basically I can choose what I want this source to be, and so on and so forth. So that is the multi-source. For USB output routing, I can go into the I/O settings tab, select outputs, and then under outputs, I can find my USB out and USB out. So I can map both my video and my audio independently. If I want to choose anything else for my USB output, I can choose from this list, and the same thing goes for the audio as well. I can choose anything from this list. For HDMI output routing, in the settings, I can go to I/O settings, then I go to outputs, and under outputs, I have output 1, where I can choose my output, and I also have output 2, where I can choose and route something to that output as well. Additionally, if I scroll down to the bottom, I have HDMI format settings. Right now they're set to auto, but I can change the color settings of that output. For multi-platform streaming, the first thing you want to do is go into the menu, and in your I/O settings, if you go to quality and streaming, you can set the streaming to low, medium, or high, depending on the bitrate that you want to set. Additionally, you can set a user-defined bitrate, and then what you do is go over to the stream menu in the very top menu bar, and you click on Show Streaming Dialog. Once this is open, I can set streams 1, 2, and 3 depending on the destination platform that I want to stream to. There's some built-in templates right here, and then I choose my server and streaming key. I can also enable or disable this. So if I want to save a streaming key in maybe stream 2 or stream 3 for another event, I can save it there and disable it so that my stream doesn't go there for this event. Once I'm ready to go live, I simply click Go Live, and I'll be on air and I'll see an on-air confirmation. Down here in the bottom left corner as well, you'll also see notifications as to whether or not the stream is hitting the final destination. Since I haven't put in any stream keys or URLs right now, it's yellow, but it would be green if it were streaming to its destination. Here in my Multiview window, I've clicked into my settings and it shows me all of my Multiview options. I can change what I'm routing to any box on the screen, so if I want input 1 to go to that first box, I simply click into the menu and do that. If I want to put preview back in there, I can click on preview and it goes right back into the box. The nice thing about this is you have options for both 10 windows and 13 windows, depending on how many items you want to see on your screen. If you have more inputs, then the 13 window makes sense. If you have fewer inputs like I have right now with just 4, the 10 window Multiview setup makes perfect sense. Here's the desktop control software, and it allows me to do a whole bunch of stuff. You can see here on the home page, I have a virtual switcher, so I can actually switch right here on the spot if I want to just by clicking, or I can go ahead and switch on the panel itself. Additionally, I have settings for my transitions, recordings, players 1 and 2, because there are 2 video playback players, and I've got additional settings over here to the right. Down in this bottom tab, I've got options to view my streaming statuses of up to 3 simultaneous streams, and I can choose to go into my audio window and make audio adjustments from there. I can choose to go into my media player window where I have control over what graphics are brought into my media players. And lastly, I have settings around the multi-view and button brightness, SSD selection, SD card selection, so you can choose what you're saving your recording to. Additionally, I've got a multi-view layout option right here. I can also click through all of these tabs and control a number of things, everything from multi-source to even auto switching and the downstream keyer. Everything's accessible right from here, and I also have my media player where I can choose if I'm playing a still or something else. And I've got my audio settings right here, so I can scroll down and set my mic to mic or line. I can choose whether I'm using the 3.5mm port or the XLR port. Again, so many settings, all accessible right here from the software. If I need to adjust the phantom power to the XLR ports, right here in my settings, all I do is click on the audio tab, pick my mic port. Mic 2 right now I'm saying is an XLR audio signal, and then I've got options for dynamic or condenser microphone. Here in my I/O settings tab, I have quite a few different options when it comes to my inputs. You'll see right now my configuration is 4 ports, SDI or HDMI, because I'm not using any more ports than that. But you do have an option for 8 ports interleaved, where it's going to alternate whether you're using SDI or HDMI, and then you have an option for 8 ports with HDMI first, so it's 4 HDMIs and then 4 SDIs, or 8 ports with SDI first, so there's 4 SDIs and then 4 HDMIs. The most important thing is that you make sure you're paying attention to where you connect your inputs into the switcher, so that if you have this set to HDMI first, you will use HDMIs 1 through 4, and then you will use SDIs after that. You might have to do some switching around with your inputs once you've plugged things in to make sure that everything is in the right position. In the Recordings tab, I have options to select which of my ISOs I want to record, which is a wonderful feature because I don't have to record all 8 inputs. I can pick and choose by simply toggling them on and off, and I have the option to select H.264 or H.265 for my recorded files. I was trying to get my OBSBot to connect to the switcher over NDI. Everything is connected on the right network, but I got this error down here. You can see it in the multi-view in input number 7. The NDI signal is not supported. Please check the signal format. Up to NDI HX3 is supported. So I'm not totally sure what's going on there and why it's not receiving the signal, but I wanted to show you that you can select NDI as both options for input 7 and input 8. So I could be bringing in 6 sources plus 2 more over NDI. One thing that you do want to note is that the NDI menu is in this top section, and I click on NDI list, and this is where I can find my sources that are available to me.
Now, I can't show you every single feature in one video, but I can tell you that in the weeks that I've used it, the flexibility stands out. HDMI inputs let me connect computers without converters, SDI inputs handle long camera runs, and NDI opens the door to creative use cases like pulling in remote devices over the network. Combined with the recent update, this really feels like a switcher that's built for almost any scenario. Of course, no piece of gear is perfect, and there's a few gripes. The build feels a little bit light. It's thin plastic and a T-bar that could use just a little bit more weight. The unit doesn't ship with a USB-C cable, which means trial and error with whatever cables you already own. The locking power connector is oddly placed right next to the 3.5mm audio jacks, which is not ideal if you care about separating power and audio to avoid a buzz. And the risers on the bottom don't allow much airflow for the fan. It's fine in normal use, but a kickstand or higher angle would make me feel better about the heat management. Still, the positives outweigh those complaints. The control panel gives you hands-on access to outputs and the audio mixer. The 10 customizable macro buttons are far more useful than the camera control only buttons that you'll see on Blackmagic switchers. And the combination of internal media players, ISO recording, NDI inputs, and simultaneous streaming makes it a very compelling all-in-one option. To me, OSEE got about 90% of the way to the dream switcher with this unit. The hardware is solid, the feature set is ahead of the curve, and the fact that they're actively releasing big updates shows that they're committed to refining it further. The one thing that I'd still like to see is clearer documentation on compatible video formats for the SD card playback, because no one wants to find out that their file won't play 15 minutes before going live. The bottom line is that the GoStream Duet 8 ISO is one of the most complete and forward-thinking live streaming switchers that you can buy for under $1,000. If you're streaming conferences, corporate events, or even running a multi-camera YouTube setup, this device answers a lot of pain points. It's not flawless, but it's a serious contender, and it puts pressure on the bigger names to innovate. If you want to learn more or just pick up one for yourself, I'll drop a link down below. See you next time.